For years, people have noticed the somewhat strange and often, let's say, overly familiar physicality of one Joe Biden, specifically with women. Numerous photos have shown Biden in close contact with various women, prompting headlines like, "Joe Biden, we need to talk about the way you touch women." Late last week, former Nevada Lieutenant Governor candidate Lucy Flores wrote about her own experience with Biden, writing that at a campaign event in 2014, Biden put his hands on her shoulders, quote, "inhaled my hair and proceeded to plant a big, slow kiss on the back of my head."
I'm not in any way suggesting that I felt sexually assaulted or sexually harassed. I felt invaded. I felt that there was a violation of my personal space.
Today, a Connecticut woman relayed a similar experience with Biden at a 2009 fundraiser. Amy Lapos telling the Hartford Courant, "It wasn't sexual, but he did grab me by the head. He put his hand around my neck and pulled me in to rub noses with me. When he was pulling me in, I thought he was going to kiss me on the mouth." NBC News has not verified either of those incidents. Biden said in response to both allegations he does not believe he ever acted inappropriately, adding, "If it is suggested I did so, I will listen respectfully, but it was never my intention. I may not recall these moments the same way, and I may be surprised at what I hear." Now, the discussion has occasioned a debate about both Biden's past in toto and his record heading into a possible presidential run, as well as how to deal with this type of behavior, an invasion of personal space that is highly gendered, even if it doesn't fit into the category of sexual misconduct. Joining me now, Democratic strategist Aisha Moody Mills, a fellow at Harvard University's Institute of Politics, and Democratic political consultant Zephyr Teachout, who's also an associate professor at the Fordham University School of Law, and a former candidate yourself, Zephyr. Yes. Let me start with you. You've run for office. I've gotten a wide spectrum of feedback on this, just from emails and conversations with people. How are you thinking about this?
Well, we are in this incredibly exciting moment where the norms are changing, and they're changing private or private quasi-public, but legal norms are changing. They're changing when it comes to how men in power interact with women. And that's an incredibly important and good thing. It's also changing, by the way. It was the same weekend this happened. You saw this big story about presidential candidates hiding their donors instead of trumpeting their donors. So the norms about legal fundraising behavior is changing, too. And we're calling out candidates for spending time talking to big donors. Right. So I think that's incredibly important. It's incredibly important to be part of demanding that we change change our expectations for how powerful men treat people. And at the same time, we have to remember that for the vast majority of Americans who are living with, real insecurity, more and more contingent workers, dying because they can't afford insulin. They are desperate to hear about policies, and that policies have an invasive, policies are violent. Policies invade people's lives. I was just talking to somebody about this today about, for a lot of voters, primary voters and general voters, Joe Biden's vote on the war in Iraq, leading to the death of 500,000 Iraqis. That's real violence that matters to voters. And I think the puzzle as a candidate is like, how do you both be out front in making sure that you're part of leading this change in the norms, which is a really good thing, and continue to consistently speak to the anxiety that voters are feeling.
What do you think, Aisha?
Well, I think, the idea of what Zephyr's saying about actually being a candidate who leads on the fact that the norms are changing is what Joe Biden needs to lean into. I think we've had a last several days of having a conversation about whether he's creepy, whether this is acceptable. I think we've gone beyond questioning whether it's okay for him to nuzzle his nose against somebody else's, particularly a woman, or kiss the back of somebody's head. I appreciate his statement. I think that he always shows up with a bit of dignity and says, I'm willing to listen if people think that I've wronged them. But what I want to see is more of a leaning in to the fact that this is not okay, and some affirmation that moving forward, he will be more conscious of the personal space that he takes up and the way that he invades other people's, and doesn't just say, well, I'm being a nice guy and I didn't think I was hurting anybody's feelings, but to say, you know what, I get it and I'm backing off, and I'm going to change my posture, and let me be a model then of behavior change and of understanding where we are now, where women deserve to be heard, and certainly I deserve, I need to back up so that women don't have to, you know, kind of like look at me and push me away.
Yeah, I should note that Stephanie Carter, who's the spouse of Ash Carter, who's Secretary of Defense, wrote this piece today. I thought it was interesting. There's this iconic photo of Biden sort of with his hands on her shoulders, which has often been included in the roundup of like, oh, he's being too personal. She wrote a piece today being like, that was actually welcomed, and I had a really tough day, and I had this horrible, I'd fallen, and sort of defending him, saying like the picture doesn't tell the full story of whatever's happening in a specific moment. But in the broader question of norms, I want to give you an argument that people have made to me. It's not my argument, but I hear it from lots of Democratic voters, which is that Democrats are crazy and they're cannibals and they're going to just like eat each other alive, finding things wrong with everyone. And because the norms are shifting, they are going to look out of touch with an America still clinging to older norms, or not even clinging, just inhabiting older norms. What do you think of that argument?
I mean, I think one of the things about, in particular, the sort of whole array of ways in which men can be creepy with women, we know it's ubiquitous, and we saw with Me Too how even more than creepiness is ubiquitous. That it's a story that everybody experiences, and that is sort of not a double-edged sword, but has two different implications. One is that everybody can relate to it, and the other is that a lot of these behaviors you're seeing are behaviors where, well, maybe my ex-husband did that,
right?
Or maybe my brother does that,
right.
and
they're really common, and I know people that do them.
And I don't want to sort of cancel them from my life, so that I both don't like it. I want to change it, but just because I want to change it doesn't mean I'm quite willing to cancel folks.
That's well said, I think, Aisha.
Yeah, so I'll just say this, Chris, is that, I'm tired of this conversation about, nervousness of whether candidates aren't going to appeal to or are going to isolate people and they're going to be out of step with where the people are. What I'm looking forward to is having a candidate that's actually a little bit more forward thinking and aspirational around where we want to be. And so I want people to show up with the kind of values and the kind of posture that is actually the way that we want to be and who we aspire to be, and not regress to some social norms that we should just kind of like take on because people just do it that way.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Aisha Moody Mills and Zephyr Teachout, thank you both for being with me tonight.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.